Okay, I want to talk about mounds, burial mounds in particular. All over the Americas, the Mississippian culture that they say existed from 800 to 1600 AD included all kinds of burial mounds and mounds that the people lived on. And just my personal studies have shown me that there's a pattern to these mounds. They have a setup near a river or a water source, and they set up the mounds as a calendar, and the elite live on top of these mounds. But some of them are buried in it, and it is the same pattern all over the Mississippian culture. But what I want to talk about is why nobody in academia asks why the same structure of mounds in the Americas is the same structure of mounds in Europe. And that's the big question. And in my opinion, it's a complete cover up, and people are so afraid to ask that question. There are mounds all over Europe that are pretty much the same concept and structure, even older than the Mississippian culture. They even have them in Israel. So let me just talk about some of the things I've personally gone out and looked at. Okay, I've been out to Atzland in Wisconsin, same structure. Mounds, built as a calendar next to a water source, special burials, a stairway or some kind of way up to the top, and a fence, an indication of trying to protect themselves. And as the Princess Mound was somebody that probably was murdered. It was a young woman who was given a special burial. I've been out to Lake Mills, Rock Lake. There's supposed to be rock structures under the water. The story goes that a red-haired people lived there, and they got into fights with other non-Caucasoid people, and they were forced out. I've been to Arkansas, Toltec Mounds. It's built next to a water source. It is also a calendar system, and same structure throughout the whole Mississippian area. I've been out to Murfreesboro, the same structure. Those are replicas of some of the bodies that were in the mounds. The real bodies are still buried underneath these replicas, and a stair up to the top where sacred fire was kept. I've been out to the effigies in Wisconsin. This is it's some kind of a shamanic figure with horns. Same kind of thing in Europe. I've been out to Nevada, and there's petroglyphs of Atlatls, and Atlatl is a spear thrower that originated out of Europe. I've seen ships on these petroglyphs out of the Valley of Fire. That's one of them, and another one right there. That's a better picture of it. And water under it. I've been out to Sloan Canyon, and those are letters that are Phoenician-like. I've been to Cahokia. The huge Monk's Mound is very similar, that's it, to European Mountain Bailey. The rest are, that's a good view. The rest are pretty much the standard mound. There's your stairway up to the top. But there's Cahokia Mound, and they had some human sacrifices all over these Mississippian. This is me walking, so you just kind of get a feel for what it was like. That's Toltec Mounds in Arkansas. They maintain those pretty well. Otherwise, it'd be a bunch of tall grass. That one's in between the trees. This Toltec Mounds was set up as a giant calendar system as well, and the elites lived on the top. And I don't know if there was any kind of a human sacrifice there, but who knows? I've been to Whitewater, Wisconsin, and have looked at the effigies. That one's the Turtle Mound that talks about the flood waters that rose, and the people were saved. Now, here's a Wikipedia page on the European Moat in Bailey, and basically it's built on a very similar structure. There's the castle, and it's a back view, but here's a picture of the people actually building the mound, which you'll never find in the Americas. I've yet to see any kind of proof of who built those mounds. Okay, those are some other mounds in Europe. Same thing that you have. There's a Mountain Bailey, a really good example. That looks just like Monk's Mound. But there are mounds all over Europe. They even go into China. It's a giant pyramid, but it's really a mound. They call them a tumulus, so they use a different name. And these mounds even go in. There's some of them go into the king. There's a really nice European mound. Boy, that looks like a Native American mound. But they even have some of these mounds for the kings of Korea. Now, these mounds are much older, or could even be similar time period as these Native American mounds. That's one mound, or they call it a tumulus in Israel. That's Gamla Uppsala in Sweden. That's supposed to be where the kings and Apollo Frey is buried. But these mounds are the same, and they are very much concentrated in Europe. There are some scattering into China. We know the Terran mummies were Caucasoid people that went into the China area. And there's some, just a handful in Korea. But there's never anybody that can actually have a backbone in academia and start asking the question, why are these mounds the same on both sides of the ocean? Who really built those mounds? I just showed you tapestry from Europe that shows white people or Caucasoids building mounds. Where are those in America that show me, any kind of a petroglyph or anything showing me who built the mounds? And I've read many stories, and when the so-called European settlers came, the Native Americans didn't know who built the mounds. They wouldn't claim them. But now they do. They claim everything. And if you know from my research, I've been looking into this Lovelock Cave, and all of the red-haired mummies, most of them have been destroyed and have disappeared. And the NAGPRA prevents the DNA testing of anything found, and that's got to be overturned. Now, just presenting some of these simple videos on YouTube just for my hobby and my research. It's interesting to me. Most people have been pretty receptive and interested in this because they want to know the truth. But I've had like a small group of individuals just really come at me and attack what I'm saying and going off on political diatribes that have nothing to do with my research, and I'm not interested in it. And I kind of track them down a bit, and I see that they go on YouTube pages for people that do similar kind of videos. So it's like a concentrated effort to stop any of this information from coming out or from even asking questions. And if I could see some proof of who built what in America to whatever tribe, and 100% proof, then that's fine. I will accept that. But just common sense to see that these things are on both sides of the ocean. And I haven't even gotten into the pyramids or the step pyramids, in the Canary Islands being the same thing as the step pyramids in Mexico. It's the same thing as some of these temples in Cambodia. I haven't even touched on that subject yet. But just even asking these questions, it's interesting to me, seems to really set a few people off who they just make a concerted effort to even stop a question from being asked on a simple harmless YouTube video. So that makes me even more curious as to what are they afraid of. So I just wanted to point out that just from my eye, any common sense person would look at these mounds in this Mississippian culture and and compare them to what's in Europe and see the similarities and start to wonder what is going on, and that some of these stories in Nina, which sounds like Tyree, talk about these people being, killed off and chased out. And I haven't even gotten to all of the places in America that I want to study, not let alone outside of this country. But it is on my to-do list. And as I continue this research, I will present what I found to those interested. And you can take it as you will. You can decide for your own. But I think there's a connection, and it's obvious. And I'd like to see somebody in academia have some backbone and really start asking these questions. that's it for my presentation on American mounds versus European mounds. Thank you.